We are nearly at the halfway point through the Indoor Football League 2024 season. Week 9 just wrapped up. I'll be going through the games and looking at the Week 10 predictions in this video and looking at the standings and the coaches pool. In the first game of last week, the Quad City Steamwheelers went to the Sioux Falls Storm and was able to win in a very close game. Sioux Falls was actually favored in this game. The 1-5 Sioux Falls Storm, with new quarterback Lorenzo Brown Jr., they did lose this game at home to another struggling team in the Quad City Steamwheelers. You look at the Steamwheelers stats. They started Irwin in this game, Mike Irwin. He had a really good game. He had 5 total touchdowns, 4 in the air, 1 on the ground, but did lose 1 fumble, which is not great in games as close as this was, but he still had a fantastic day with those 5 total touchdowns. He does look, they've had a quarterback battle all season long, and it's been relatively close. Judd Erickson has had some of the top stats in passing yards this season in the entire league, and he's thrown a decent amount of touchdowns. It is interesting, though, because Irwin has thrown 0 interceptions and 8 touchdowns, and every time he's shown up, he's probably played better than Judd Erickson. And in this game, he was able to get them their third win of the season to now be 3-4, going 14 for 22 with 178 yards. At the running back position, Edward Vander had a fantastic day, over 100 yards of total scrimmage and 3 total touchdowns, 2 being thrown by Mike Irwin and then 1 on the ground. In the receiving game, not much was done outside of Jordan Vesey, who caught 2 touchdowns off 3 receptions. And then the defense was able to force multiple interceptions, one by Malik Duncan and one by Trey Smith, both secondary players. And then I believe only 1 sack was had in this game. In the kicking game, Kyle Kaplan went 6 for 6 PATs and 2 for 3 field goals with a long of 32. That's a pretty good day. And then a huge kick return touchdown by Gerard Harrington. 177 yards and a touchdown. That's pretty big in a game as close as this one was. You then go look at the Sioux Falls Storm. Again, going back to Lorenzo Brown Jr., we saw him play the majority of the game last week against the Green Bay Blizzard, but he got the start, and we did not see any of Billy Hall in this game. It looks like he's going to be the guy moving forward in this season. Brown played a pretty okay game, but he had 3 turnovers. He had 2 interceptions and 1 fumble lost. The turnovers really killed him in this game. If it not for all of the turnovers, they probably would have won this game. And I do think they are the better team in comparison to the Steamwheelers, but not able to get it done. And just not very clean football by Lorenzo Brown Jr. On the ground, Keyshawn Williams was able to rush for 2 touchdowns. Bryson Dinley didn't do too much after his really good performance last week against the Blizzard. But Keyshawn Williams got the majority of the touches, and he took it to the house 2 times. Wide receiver Carlos Thompson was wide receiver 1 in this game, catching 6 receptions, 79 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Another touchdown was caught by Drayshawn Hudson. Looking at the defense, they were able to do a little bit, but not too much. They allowed 56 points. Elijah Reed led the team with 9 tackles and a tackle for loss, but still not as well as you would hope for. Bryson Dinley, as we mentioned earlier, the running back, was really back into the kickoff return game. We've seen him return kicks once before this season in week 2, but now he was the main return man in this game. Returned 7 kicks for 111 yards. So overall, Sioux Falls falls to 1-6. They are not the bottom in the Eastern Conference, but they're tied with the bottom in the Eastern Conference. I don't know where you go from here if you're the Storm. You have to keep winning, and I personally believe that Billy Hall is the answer for that this year. I don't think Lorenzo Brown, especially just now coming in with his age, can do as much, especially with the legs, as Billy Hall can. Billy Hall is a extremely effective runner of the football at the quarterback position, and we've seen that that's really what you need to do to win in this league. In the next game, we got two of the top teams in the indoor football league facing off in Vegas. It was a high-scoring game, a really close game. At the end of the game, there was a little bit of questionable calls by the officials in favor of Vegas, but Vegas was still the better team, and they still should have won that game. They were 12.5-point favorites, which was probably too much. I did pick the Strike Force. I thought they would upset, but they did not. Vegas played really good and deserved to win this game. You look at Jerome Johnson coming back for his second game in a row after getting benched at halftime, which I still disagree with, but Johnson threw 3 touchdowns, ran for 2 more, and did throw an interception. But the run game for the Nighthawks was just so dominant. Antonio Winbush, 3 rushing touchdowns. He did catch one in the air, and then Johnson running for 2 as well for a total of 5 touchdowns by just the 2 of them. And then you got Caleb Hawley also running for a touchdown. So 6 total rushing touchdowns by the Nighthawks. Definitely why they won this game. Quentin Randolph, still the number 1 wide receiver for the Nighthawks. He's been fantastic since graduating from West Florida Division II. He's one of my favorite wide receivers to watch, and he is one of the best wide receivers in the league still. Caleb Hawley did catch another touchdown. Defensively, they didn't do too much. I mean, they let up 60-plus points. So, it is what it is. But linebacker DJ Ford did lead the team with 7 tackles. Bryce Hampton, defensive back, was able to force an interception, which would turn out to be huge. So, great job by him. Then you look at the strike force. Nate Davis continuing to throw a ton of touchdowns, 6 touchdowns in this game. He did throw an interception, but that brings his total to 30 on the season with just 5 interceptions. He's been great with the strike force this season. Running back Chance Bell, ever since week 3, been the starting running back. Another rushing touchdown. 7 now total on the year. He has lost 2 fumbles, but he's been a pretty solid running back. He doesn't have a ton of yards, but the touchdowns do speak for themselves. Wide receiver Jordan Kress led the corps with 5 receptions, 76 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Isaiah Crocker caught 2 more touchdowns, and Elijah Lilly did catch a touchdown, but not only did he do that, he returned a touchdown. 4 returns, 99 yards, and 1 touchdown return. That is his second on the year. What I think is really interesting is they've put Rudy Johnson, the quarterback, who's also caught passes, back to return kicks, and he returned a touchdown as well. I just thought that was really interesting. But overall, I mean, still really, really, really good stuff by the strike force receivers. You can see all of these guys have touchdowns. Kress leads with Kress is second with 8 touchdowns. Jackson leads with 10 touchdowns, and he hasn't played in 2 weeks. So, just really good. One of the best wide receiver rooms in the league. Linebacker Sherrod Williams led the team with 9 tackles. Defensive back Otoa Fox. Don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but he did have a pick 6 in this game. Kept the game close. The strike force really fought hard to stay in this game, and they were able to. They only lost by 4 points, but Dexter Reese did have 8 tackles and 2 breakups, which is a really good game overall. But the kicking issues with Mangan were not good in this game. Over 4 PATs and 1 field goal. That's the game. That's over the difference of the game. So overall, we've seen that the strike force has struggled these past couple weeks. They've now lost 3 games. I still think they're better than that. They've taken all of their losses have been really, really close games. They fall to 4-3, which is tied with third in the division, but they're better than the Wranglers. And the Rattlers haven't really been playing defense this year. They haven't been they haven't been like they have been the past couple years. They're not better than these two teams though, or they're at the same level as those two teams. So 2 losses to Bay Area, 1 to the Nighthawks. The Strike Force are still definitely a playoff team, and they're one of the better teams in the league. They just happen to have 3 losses, so don't let their record fool you. They're still a great team. The Nighthawks, 7-0, number 1 for a reason. They've been number 1 for 2 weeks in a row because they're the final team that is undefeated. They've beat the Panthers 2 weeks ago, and now they beat the Strike Force. They are the best team in the Western Conference, in my opinion, and they'll probably win the Western Conference. See how long they can go undefeated. You look at the third game of the week, the 1-5 Sharks versus the 5-1 Frisco Fighters. This game wasn't close. 17-point spread for a reason. I did pick Frisco to win this game because I didn't think it would be particularly close, and it was not. You look at the Sharks. Fred Payton continuing to start. He did struggle this week. 2 touchdowns thrown, 2 interceptions thrown, and he lost a fumble. But he did rush for 60 yards and 2 touchdowns, which is, that's what they needed. That's why they were able to get that win over Tulsa last week. He used his legs. He won Offensive Player of the Week. He was fantastic, deservedly so. The run game outside of him, not too prevalent. You did have Stanley Williams run for a touchdown off of 3 carries. The wide receiver room, only player to catch the touchdowns for the Sharks in this game was Tamarian Terry. Not good, really, overall by the Sharks with anything. DJ Stubbs lost a fumble on a kickoff return. It was just a bad day for the Sharks playing one of the top teams in the league. So, you kind of get it, but this has not been a very great first year in the IFL for the Sharks. You look at the Fighters. Second week in a row that Larry Harrington has got more playtime than TJ Edwards. That happened last week, and then Edwards didn't play in this game. So I assume he's banged up a little bit, trying to let him rest, because he will definitely be needed for the stretch and the playoffs. Harrington did not do bad whatsoever in this game. 3 rushing touchdowns, 61 rushing yards, and he did throw a touchdown. No turnovers. So that's exactly what you want, especially in this offense, the run-heavy offense. But the run game for Frisco was absolutely dominant. Both running backs ran for touchdowns, but Martez Carter ran for 4 touchdowns and had over 100 total yards of scrimmage. 4 touchdowns off of just 7 carries. That's crazy. The run game is just insane. And then Jimmy Smith also had a touchdown. The only passing touchdown was caught by Cole Blackman off of 1 catch for 44 yards thrown by Harrington. The defensive line was able to get 1 sack and 3 tackles for loss and recover a fumble. This defense has been really good all season long, and they showed it again against the Sharks, an inferior opponent, and did exactly what you'd want them to do. Roy C. has been a really good linebacker for them this year, led the team with 8 tackles in this game and forced a fumble. The defense was able to force 2 interceptions off of Fred Payton Jr., and Ethan Castleberry had a fantastic game. 6 tackles, 1 interception, 3 pass breakups. Lionel McConnell was able to force another interception, bringing his total to 5. And then Kentrell Pierce was able to have 2 pass breakups in this game. Really good overall by the Fighters in this game. Next, the Tulsa Oilers went to the Green Bay Blizzard and got demolished by 20 points. It was a 7.5-point spread. I did pick Green Bay. It was not a close game. Like I said last week, the Oilers are just so inconsistent and such a question mark of a team lately. You look at the Oilers stats, quarterback Daniel Smith has been really good all season. But this team just can't figure out how to consistently win. There wasn't a run game outside of Smith, and he only ran for 9 yards. That's why they lost. The Blizzard were able to completely shut down the run game. He was sacked twice and only threw for 1 touchdown and ran for another one. The offense did not do much at all in this game. Only scored 22 points when you're letting your opponent score 42. I mean, part of that is on the defense, but even still, you need to score points in this league. Wide receiver Troel Calvin did score the lone receiving touchdown in this game, so good on him. But the offense was just not too great for the Oilers in this game. Defensively, they did all right. They did allow 42 points, though. Linebacker Bennett Harvey had 9 tackles. His other linebacker, Jordan Jones, had 10. It was just not fantastic by the Oilers defense. They just disappointing if you're an Oilers fan. You look at the Blizzard, Max Mailer still continuing to be really good. He's having probably the best season of his career. Last year he was splitting time with Jerome Johnson in Green Bay, and now he is definitely the starting quarterback. He has earned that right. 3 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. The run game was good. Overall, both running backs getting decent amount of yards, and then the quarterback rushing for 2 touchdowns. Wide receiver Harry Ballard III catching all 3 touchdowns off 5 receptions and having 81 receiving yards. The defense, again, held them to just 22 points, and that was led by defensive back Ravarius Rivers, 11 tackles, 1 block. Overall, you see just really good stuff statistically by this defense, and then you look at the fact they only allowed 22 points. And Blizzard are really, really, really looking like a playoff team after in previous years having some not great seasons, but now they're 5-2, and they're really looking like they could really do something this year. Just tied second, actually, in the standings in the Eastern Conference with the Massachusetts Pirates. Who we'll talk about now. The Massachusetts Pirates fell to a 1-win Iowa Barnstormers team after being favored by 10.5. This was a really big upset. It surprised me, and I'm starting to question a little bit the consistency of the Pirates. I'll go back and you look at the previous weeks by the Pirates. Hold on. They didn't play last week, but the week before that, really close game with winless Sioux Falls. Week before that, they fell to the Quad City Steamwheelers, who again is not that fantastic of a team. And that's been their past 4 weeks, and especially coming off of a bye week this week and falling to the Barnstormers, who were definitely one of the lower teams in the IFL. Going into this past week, they were ranked 15th. This win bumped them up to 12th, but it's just not a good look if you're the Pirates, and you're a better team than that. But again, this is only their second loss of the season, so it is it's not too big of a worry, but this is one of those games that you just should win against Iowa. Looking at the stats, Benefield is back. He started, had an okay game. 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 sacks. The run game with Jimmy Robinson, solid. 8 carries for 1 touchdown. Not good by any stretch of the imagination. The receiving game, Tio Redding, Thomas Owens, Isaac Zico didn't play, but these 3 are fantastic wide receivers, and they just nobody was able to do enough in this game defeat Iowa. The defense, led up a ton of points to the Barnstormers, who I'll talk about now. Kyle King, really good game. 2 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. He is the clear-cut starter now over Darius James Peterson for this team, I think. He started 4 weeks in a row. It's pretty obvious, but I just wanted to say that the run game was good with Rob Washington running for 2 touchdowns and then Trey Long catching both of those touchdowns. The defense, pretty good, holding the Pirates back a good amount. Linebacker Ian McBorough, 11 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 1 sack. Defensive Player of the Week conversation. That's a really good week, but I don't know if he'll win it. But just overall, really, really good stuff by the Barnstormers. This is the first game this season. They just feels like that they've put a lot together and was able to actually come out with another win. You look at the Barnstormers now winning 2 games in a row. They were 0-5 last week. They beat the Steamwheelers by 2, 55-53. And now, coming off of that game, I thought they would be in a come-down spot, but they continue the streak of winnings and are able to defeat the Pirates, who were 5-1 going into this game. It's a really good game. Now looking at the Gunslingers going to the Gladiators and barely winning. The defensive issues are starting to show back up for the Gunslingers. They don't have one, allowing 53 points to the Gladiators. But there is one thing about the Gladiators now that is a lot different. They have Joe Mancuso, who was with the Nighthawks, but is now with the Gladiators. I think that is going to help them so much more this season. I liked Kilgo. Mancuso's better than Kilgo. Mancuso can really lead them to multiple wins. He could turn the entire season around for the Gladiators. I don't think they're a playoff team. I don't think they have the playoff roster. But Mancuso could get them like 7 wins. I think he's going to be really fun to watch going forwards. And he played great. 4 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns with 91 rushing yards. Again, that is against not a good defense. But I think this gives you so much hope if you're a Gladiators fan. Outside of him, Jeff Carr on the ground was able to rush for a touchdown. But looking at the receivers, he spread the ball around. Laughinghouse caught a touchdown. Concleve caught 2. And Corell caught 1. Really, really good stuff by the Gladiators. The defense, 10 tackles by defensive lineman Tamar Hart. 2 tackles for loss. 2 quarterback hits, 1 sack, and 1 forced fumble. Really, really good game by him. They didn't lose this game because of him. He had a really good game. Overall, Gladiators, this is the most hope for this team that I've seen all season long. This quarterback performance and this quarterback performance and this one are just definitely the brightest spots for the Gladiators this season. Unfortunately for them, they are still winless. But Mancuso brings so much hope. I know I've said that a ton, but he really does. You go to the Gunslingers now, Sam Castronova. His defense may not be doing anything, but he certainly is. 7 more total touchdowns, brings his total to 39 passing with just 2 interceptions and 10 rushing touchdowns. He's very much in the MVP conversation. I know he's not on the greatest team, but he is doing so much right now against any defense you put in front of him. You look at the stats: 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns, 8 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns. That's great. That is MVP numbers. Then you look at his completions percentage: 134 for 184. That is really, really good. Running-wise, running back Keyshawn Harper ran for a touchdown, caught a touchdown. Continuing to be that solid back that this team needs and has. In the receiving game, Khalil Rashad, he did lose a fumble, but he caught 10 passes for over 100 yards which is so hard to do in the IFL because of the shortened field, but he did it with 122 and 3 touchdowns. Great game by him. And then good games by Austin Upshaw and Donald Myers. Myers has not played but in 2 games this season, but he has had an effect when he's there, most definitely. And then Upshaw continuing. This 4 games in a row he's got a touchdown. Defensively, again, not good. Still, just not good. That's all I'm going to say about that. But I've made it very clear in my videos how I feel about the Gunslingers defense. And I think I've made it clear how I feel about their offense. It's fantastic. They were favored by 6.5. Because, last time that these two teams met earlier in the season, the defense was actually able to shut down the Gladiators. But they didn't have Mancuso in that situation. And when they do, when they face a confident quarterback, you see, boom, 53 points. Like always. Second to last game, the Bay Area Panthers went to the Northern Arizona Wranglers and barely got out with a win. They are now 6-1 in second place of the Western Conference. Really good game. 2 really good teams. The Wranglers may be better than I have them. I think that they are probably in that. I'll show you the standings. I think that these 3 teams are just definitely better than the Wranglers. I think this is a tier, and then them. But I could very well be wrong. The Wranglers fought hard in this game. They fought hard in multiple games. They played a ton of really close games, but they can't seem to win against those top-tier opponents. They're now 4-3. They have a good chance to make the playoffs. You look at the playoffs. Here are the current stat leaders. 4 from each conference. And then you look over here. Those are 4 great teams. Arizona's going to try and fight in for it. And the Gunslingers could definitely make it. But I think these are the 4 teams. Arizona's been so inconsistent. Defense cannot do anything. This rematch from the Week 1 game, it's going to be huge because in that game, Dalton Sneed was starting for the Rattlers. He was hurt. He's only played once since then. And I think the Wranglers have grown a lot. They're a very different team from that Week 1 matchup. Back to the Wrangler stats. Joshua Jones, 21-3 ratio, 9 rushing touchdowns. Been sacked 6 times, though, and he got sacked 2 more times in this game. He had a good game like always. Never question him. I haven't. And then the run game, outside of him, was nowhere. Arsiah McCorker, he was shut down in this game. The Panthers were able to shut him down. He is by far their most electric player. Not by far. He is probably their most electric player. But David Elder and Tosin were able to catch touchdowns in this game. Defensively, they had a solid game. Only allowing your point to score 30-something points is pretty solid in the IFL. Defensive linemen, Tremont Lofton and Dejor Davenport both had solid games. Tackle for loss and a sack. The defensive backs didn't have a ton of tackles, which shows they didn't have to make a ton of tackles. And then the kicking game, 45 long field goal, 3 for 4 field goals, and then Arsiah McCorker, 99 kickoff return yards. Now looking at the Panthers, quarterback DeQuan Neal was shut down in the run game. I wouldn't say shut down. He only ran 6 times. He was sacked twice, but he has been one of the most electric running quarterbacks in the IFL. He threw for 3 touchdowns, and then running back Shane Simpson had 4 total touchdowns. He was the best player for the Panthers in this game. 72 yards on the ground, 50 yards receiving, 4 total touchdowns, 2 each. And then wide receiver Jazuri Peterson was the only wide receiver to catch a touchdown in this game. The defense was able to hold the Wranglers to only 30-something points. Desmond Williams and Tyler Watson both having 8 tackles, and Williams with 2 tackles for loss. The defensive line was able to get multiple tackles for loss and 2 sacks. BJ was able to have a block as well, which is really good. But, I mean, Panthers still one of the better teams in the league. Obviously, 6-1, ranked second in the coaches poll. Only losses to the number 1 Nighthawks. Really, really good stuff by the Panthers again this week. And then in the final game, Arizona barely beating Tucson. Tucson did have quarterback Malik Mitchell back in this game, and I've been saying when he's in, he's really good. He did throw 3 touchdowns, barely over 50% pass completion percentage, only 95 yards passing, but 3 touchdowns nonetheless, and then 1 more on the ground. He was sacked twice and did have 2 fumbles lost, which really, they probably would have won this game if not for that, if not for the turnovers. They played really good. They can be a solid team in this league, but they only have 1 win. Wide receivers, Brian Smith and Jalen Marshall caught touchdowns. The defense, pretty good. But they did allow 38 points to the Rattlers. Defensive lineman, Jalen Parks, 3 pass breakups. So, really effective in the pass game. Not only rushing the passer, but also, deflecting some passes. The kicker, Dimitri Vatinos, had a long field goal of 38 yards. And the Sugar Schools, they could definitely upset someone. And they were very close to doing so in this game. After starting Dalton Sneed last week for the Rattlers, Garrett Kettle got the start this week against Tucson. I don't know if Sneed is hurt. I don't know if it is the matchup itself. But Sneed has only played in 2 games since winning a championship with the Bay Area Panthers last season. Kettle did do well, but, it's just a quarterback carousel, it feels like, for the Rattlers between these 3 guys. But Brown isn't there anymore, so it's just these 2. It is just Sneed and Kettle. Running-wise, Shannon Brooks was dominant on the ground. 77 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did lose 1 fumble. But nonetheless, 77 rushing yards is really, really good in the IFL. Receiving-wise, Glenn Gibbons Jr. did catch a touchdown, as did Jamal Miles. Defensively, they were able to hold the Sugar Schools to 32 points, but, they were able to force 2 fumbles on Malik Mitchell, but they still letting a decent amount of points to a team that only has 1 win. The Sugar Schools, I believe in the Sugar Schools. I really do, but Arizona, if they want to be the caliber of team that they have been the past couple years, a championship contender year in and year out, got to play better. Not just in this game. They were able to win in this game, but I'm just talking about overall this season. Now looking at the game next week, Iowa goes to Quad City. Iowa's won 2 games in a row. Quad City, coming off of a win against Sioux Falls, I think this is going to be a really close game. I'm honestly not too sure who's going to win this. I'm not too confident in picking a winner in this game. But I don't think Iowa's going to win 3 in a row. So I'm picking Quad City. Next, a great matchup. The Wranglers at the Pirates. Pirates have lost a couple games in the past 4 weeks. Like I've said, I think they'll bounce back, unfortunately, for the Wranglers. Wranglers are better than a 4-4 team. But the Pirates, I believe, will win this game. Then Frisco goes to Green Bay. Green Bay coming off of a big win against the Oilers. I think I'm not going to pick the upset, actually. I think Frisco, if TJ Edwards plays in this game, I think Frisco will win. In the next game, Tulsa goes to the Gunslingers. This is going to be a really good game. Really good game. So, I actually don't think that the offense for Tulsa is going to be able to keep up with the offense for the Gunslingers in this game. But also, Tulsa has been able to score points previously. I mean, they put up 72 points earlier in the season. I believe it was against Quad City. So I'm not too certain. I think this is really a coin flip kind of game. I'll probably go with the home team in San Antonio. Next, Sioux Falls goes to Jacksonville. 2 1-win teams. Searching for a win. Desperately needing one. If Lorenzo Brown plays, which I think will probably happen, I'm picking the Sharks. I think Billy Hall needs to be the starter for that team. And the Sharks, I mean, Fred Payton, he has played good football. But then again, the Storm does have a pretty solid defense. The Storm are better than a 1-6 team. I'm going with the Storm. That's a really close game also. Bay Area and Arizona. If Dalton Snead plays, this will be him versus his former team. Bay Area barely was able to get out with a win against the Wranglers. This is definitely an upset spot. But I'll come back to that one. The Nighthawks to Tucson. I think Nighthawks win that game, and the Strikeforce are winning that game. But back to this Bay Area Arizona game. I would 100% keep my eye on this game. If out of all the games, this is the game I would watch this upcoming week. And it's really close for me. But I'm going to go with Bay Area. It's pretty chalk, but I think I'll go with Bay Area. So those are my predictions for next week. Going over last week's Players of the Week. Offensively, as I mentioned, Fred Payton Jr. Defensive line for Sioux Falls, Claude Davis. And then kicker for Iowa, Gabriel Ree. His first time. All of their first times getting this award. Really good for them. Good job by them. And this past week's haven't been announced yet, but I'll go over those next week. I'm really excited for next week's games, week 10 out of 19. So I will be back next week. Thank you for watching, and